Hello and welcome to the Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast. This is your host, Bryce Moose, otherwise known as the Commissioner and the only two-timer. All right, so today I'll be tackling the Alec team review solo. Need to get through these before the season starts, and I just figured it was best I could knock this out today. So talking about Alec's team, Alec came in seventh last season. I believe he finished at 6-8 overall, just barely missed the playoffs, just a couple games down the stretch. Didn't go his way. He had a very strong team, if everyone remembers, towards the end of the year. Just had a kind of a tough schedule. If he could have won some of those toss-up games earlier in the year, he definitely could have made the playoffs. And that was kind of Grant's biggest competition. And obviously Grant went on to win the league, but Alec was right there, and this could be a totally different story here today. So talking about Alec, so he has kind of been laying low, I guess, would be the best way to put it in the offseason. Hasn't made a lot of moves, if any moves at all, since the draft. But this morning, he made a huge trade, acquiring T. Higgins and selling a few different things to cap. Actually, let me pull that trade up here so that I can recap for everyone. I like Alec's team a lot. We're going to talk about it today. I think he's just a couple moves away from having another one of these, possible contending teams. And also, if he wants to blow this up, he's actually ranked fourth in picks in grit. So he actually has a really good route to kind of tanking if that's what he wants to do. A ton of players that contenders would love to have. So it's kind of up to him what direction he takes. All right, so here's this trade. So the trade this morning was Alex sends Justin Herbert, Brandon Ayuk, and Deuce Vaughn for T. Higgins, Brock Purdy, and then Jacobs' 2024 first rounder. I'm going to get into this a little bit when I get to Brock Purdy, but Alex selling Justin Herbert was a huge decision. Justin Herbert, obviously 25-year-old franchise quarterback who's consensus, I think, top 7 on everybody's list. Primed for another great year this year. Absolutely no question why anyone in this league would want him. But I do feel like he got a pretty good return out of this. I know a lot of people were saying that he may have even won this trade by like a significant margin. I thought it was pretty close. I think it's a good deal for both sides. I think it makes sense. And it kind of sets Alec up with a interesting route he can take going forward here. So with selling Justin Herbert, we now look at C.J. Stroud as Alec's number 1 overall quarterback here. He's going to be the day one starter. Barring another move, which definitely could happen in the next week. But C.J. Stroud takes over this Texans offense, and they actually have a little bit of weapons this year. Davis Mills tried to do it last year with that horrific Texans team, and they just didn't really have, many great players for him to throw the ball to. This year, we got Tank Dell, Xavier Hutchinson, John Mechie, Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz, and then Damian Pierce at running back. And this offensive line is honestly pretty good. I mean, Larry Tunsil is probably considered one of the top 2 or 3 best left tackles in the NFL. Tyson Howard's missed all of preseason, but he's supposed to be back by week 1. I think Stroud's actually set up here for a pretty nice season. How it relates to fantasy points is kind of to be determined because we know C.J. Stroud is a capable runner. If you guys remember the national championship game, like C.J. Stroud really, did some actually it wasn't the national championship game, was it? It was the college football playoff game, but he really did some great things against Georgia with his legs, and it kind of showed everyone like, whoa, like maybe this guy's a little bit better of a prospect than we thought, because he was like actually making guys miss and getting out in space. How it relates to this year, I wouldn't be expecting too much great fantasy output from Stroud. Like I think he's kind of going to be in that second tier of like, if you had to start him, great. But this is like the perfect kind of situation. Like if you did want to tank, this quarterback room is very similar to my quarterback room, which is just, hey, we're going to watch a rookie play and then go from there next year. I do kind of think if Alec wants to compete, he's, obviously you're going to have to make a couple different trades to do that. And this roster is kind of set up in the middle right now where he's got a lot of pieces it looks like he can tank and he's set up well for it. And then a lot of pieces that are totally win now mode, like no going back. These guys are just getting less and less valuable every day. So With that in this trade, like he acquired Brock Purdy. Brock's going to start for the 49ers this year. Had a great end of the season last year, and with all those weapons around him, he can very easily have capable fantasy output kind of performances. But again, I don't know if he's kind of the long-term answer. That's why you see him here at quarterback 19 on Sleeper, just because people really don't know what to expect from him going forward. Is this like a one-year wonder? It seems like he's kind of easily replaceable. How good is he really? A lot of questions still, but definitely not the worst guy to own. I think both of these guys are very good owns in Dynasty, and who knows, going forward, maybe one of them could end up being a top 10 starter. I think Stroud definitely would be the more likely of the two, just because Stroud has, higher ceiling just overall as a prospect. He can kind of do it all. But Purdy definitely going to be valuable as long as he's the starter in San Francisco. All right, so moving on to running back. We got to lead the way here with Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry is entering his age 30 season. He turns 30. His age 29 season. He turns 30 in January, so this will be his final year under 30 in his career. But we all kind of thought that the fall off had started because back in 2021, Derrick Henry got hurt. He only played 8 games. I think he only had 7 touchdowns. Last year, he comes back with another 1,614 touchdown season or whatever it was, and he's just breaking all of the stereotypes for aging running backs, especially these big guys who just seem to deteriorate and always get hurt. Everyone thought that Derrick Henry's injury was going to be something that kind of started the downfall of his career, and he kind of proved that, hey, like I'm still really, really good and capable of continuing to do this. And if you look at the Titans' backfield, I mean, the entire offense is designed around Derrick Henry getting the football. Last year, he caught double the amount of passes of his career average, right? He only averaged about 18 catches a season over his first 7 seasons. And last year, he caught 35 passes. If Derrick Henry's going to catch 35 passes for you, like that is a huge fantasy upside. And we know the week-to-week ceiling that Derrick Henry has. And, I've talked a lot about this division, but he's going to have a lot of good game scripts this year, a lot of Titans playing with the lead type stuff. And with the addition of DeAndre Hopkins and Treylon Burks looking healthy now, I think there's definitely a path here for like Derrick Henry to have another great season. We see him ranked here at RB17 in Dynasty, which I think is probably fair just given his age. Most guys that are turning 30 at running back are nowhere near the top 20, so that alone shows you how special Derrick Henry is. But this is definitely one of these players, like if you wanted to kind of blow this roster up and realize you don't want to compete, Derrick Henry obviously would be the first one to go for me. Every contender is going to want him. And if you're tanking, he does nothing for you because he's just getting older with time and he's going to score too many points for you. Aaron Jones, the next one. Aaron Jones, I pulled up his stats because I was honestly, I think, underestimating how good he has been. Last year, Aaron Jones had 1,100 yards, but he only had 2 rushing touchdowns. But what we really love about Aaron Jones is back-to-back seasons with over 50 catches. I know it's playing with Aaron Rodgers. I know it's kind of how Aaron Rodgers plays with the dump-offs and everything. But being that good of a receiving back and being that consistent is just how these guys get fantasy points. Again, 59 catches for 400 yards and 5 receiving touchdowns is like a very good statistical stuff to go along with 1,100 rushing yards. The big threat to Aaron Jones is just A.J. Dillon's, stealing the goal line stuff. The bigger threat this year, I think, is just, are the Packers going to be a good team? I know there's a lot of hype around Jordan Love, a lot of hype around Christian Watson. But I think Aaron Jones is still very good. He's still very capable. And we should be expecting him to have another one of these, quality running back, 2 seasons. I'm just not sure if his ceiling is still there, with this offense. He's turning 29 this year. He turns 29 in December. And as these guys get older towards the end of their contracts, like it's where it gets a little scary. He's not insulated at all. Like if Aaron Jones gets hurt, they could easily hold him out and just play A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon, I don't think is a great player, but he's very good at what he does, which is goal line stuff, short yardage. a lot of high value touches, which really does limit Aaron Jones's touchdown upside in general. But again, as he stands right now, he's a guy I think everybody would love to have if they're trying to win a championship. So definitely a trade piece. Tyjae Spears is third on Alec's running back rankings, and if you followed college football, Tyjae Spears was maybe the most electric player that I've ever seen that didn't play at a Power 5 school. His famous bowl game against Southern Cal, where Caleb Williams threw for 500 yards and Tulane beat them by Tyjae Spears having 230 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns in that just wild game. He was just everything for that top. What did Tulane finish? Top 8 last year. He was like the workhorse, do it all, didn't leave the field kind of player. Tyjae Spears was a first round talent, and I don't want this to get misconstrued at all. Like Tyjae Spears, when it comes down to purely playing football, is a first round talent. And I think he's the first, not threat to Derrick Henry, but the first guy that the Titans have had here in a while who's definitely going to mix in and definitely get some work. I love that Alec has both here because if anything does happen to Derrick Henry, I mean, that's the risk you run with 30-year-old running backs. But if anything happens to him, we know that Tyjae is going to be the next guy. There's absolutely no question. He's been great in preseason. But the reason why he dropped in the draft and, instead of being maybe the third running back off the board in the second or third round, ends up being, a fifth round pick is because he has this anomaly medical condition with his ACL. He literally does not have an ACL in one of his knees. There's a lot of questions about how long he can kind of last, how he can maintain his health. And as the years go by, does this guy really only have a 4-year career, or is he kind of set up to, can he just overcome this medically? Seeing the explosion and stuff out of preseason for him was really shocking. Again, he was a very old prospect. I think he was a 5th-year senior, so drafted 23. But I really like Tyjae Spears. I'm cheering for him. I think a lot of people are as well. But I love that Alec has him. And I think that if I'm Alec, I'm not trading Tyjae Spears away without also trading Derrick Henry. Just package the Titans backfield together and sell it to somebody. I think that can make a lot of sense if you did want to make that move. Standalone value for Tyjae Spears, we'll have to see. Do they want to throw him the ball this year? Can he work in for 6-7 carries a week? I mean, maybe, I don't know, but he's definitely a wait and see. But he's definitely going to play a lot more than your typical 5th round pick would. Damian Harris, the next guy, and Damian Harris is somebody that I was really nervous about when the Bills signed him, just being the James Cook owner. But he's missed all of training camp with an injury. Finally worked in for the last preseason game. I think he got 3 carries. They're just trying to get him up to game speed, get him tackled once or twice, and see how he's feeling. But through 4 seasons in the NFL, Damian Harris has never had 1,000 yards. He had a monster 2021 season, if you guys remember, where he scored 15 rushing touchdowns for the Patriots. Now he transitions over to a new team, and he's the very clear number 2. I think he's going to get some goal line stuff. I think he's going to get some short yardage stuff, but it also doesn't sound like the Bills are rushing to take James Cook off the field. I think he's going to be working in, but I don't know if you can count on him from a week-to-week basis. I don't know, maybe this is a spot if you have Damian Harris, maybe you try to trade for James Cook and see if, maybe I would give him up to you. Because owning the Bills backfield should be fairly appealing, I think. I mean, they said they want to run the ball more. James Cook looks good, but I think unless anything happens to James Cook, Damian Harris is a possible flex play. I would just never feel great about him on just a week-to-week basis. Let's see. Kyren Williams. Yes, Kyren Williams. Pull this down. Okay, so as much as I was down on Kyren Williams as a prospect, in college he was a absolute superstar for Notre Dame. I mean, this is a guy who got Heisman votes for being a pass-catching running back for them. He was a kind of workhorse, do-it-all. And he comes to the NFL as a 7th-round pick because he's one of the worst athletes we've ever seen at the running back position. But he's good at the sport. He understands how to play. He knows what he's supposed to do. He's all but locked up this number 2 job for the Rams, and he was supposed to play a lot more last year. He got hurt. I think he missed the first 13 games of the season last year with an injury. And then they didn't want to risk him getting hurt again as we went down the stretch, just because there's no point, right? If the Rams were already out of playoff contention, no need to rush a rookie back from injury. So I think we're going to actually get to see a little bit of Kyron this year. I think he's a player I'm kind of excited about. Cam Akers is there, but Cam Akers has been up and down with his coaching staff 100 times. And Kyron is 100% the next guy in line. I mean, I pay attention to some preseason stuff, and like Kyron Williams, like rested when the starters rested, in these preseason games 2 and 3. The Rams clearly value him. He was a lock to make the 53. All the beat reporters say he looks good. He's like very clearly like the third down back. I think you're going to see him like play like a fairly good amount this year. Don't be surprised if Kyron Williams is somebody you see added in redraft leagues as the season goes on. If Cam Akers' value is somewhat kind of decreased by him. Behind Kyron Williams is Zach Evans, who we talked about a little bit yesterday, but Zach Evans' skill set doesn't line up with Kyron Williams. He's actually way more similar to Cam Akers. So Kyron kind of stands alone here as like the pass catching back for them. And, we'll see. Definitely somebody to keep your eye on. He should be much higher in these running back rankings. Like running back 72 is a joke for somebody who's like a guaranteed number 2 and third down back for a fairly exciting offense. Michael Carter, probably don't need to stick on him for too long. The Jets drafting Izzy Abanikanda, signing Dalvin Cook. Michael Carter is like fully buried as like the number 4 and a special teamer now for the Jets. Maybe he mixes in, but it's going to take, I think, multiple injuries for him to be any kind of fantasy relevant anytime soon, which is kind of sad, seeing is like he played pretty good as a rookie and just nothing ever came of it. Zach Moss is the one that, we've mentioned a few times talking about this Jonathan Taylor situation, but depending on when Zach Moss gets back from this fractured arm, I think he's going to be like the day one starter for the Colts. They didn't put him on PUP to start the season. So like he's on the active 53, which means they expect him to play in week 1. If Zach Moss does play in week 1, I think he's a guaranteed flex start playing against the Jaguars. Definitely somebody to keep your eye on too. I know Matt's the Jonathan Taylor owner, like getting Zach Moss for not too much from Alec, I think would make some sense if Alec was willing to make that deal. I think the biggest thing here is I would love to see Alec add one more running back that's like a flex option that isn't like dependent on an injury, because right now it's really thin behind Aaron Jones. There's not a lot of guys you feel great about from like a weekly starting standpoint. I kind of skipped over Gus Edwards too, I guess, but like he's just fully behind J.K. Dobbins at this point. Like, yeah, he's going to get some carries, but it feels like a ceiling of 10, barring some goal line plunge. So yeah, I would love to see Alec add maybe one more running back. I think that would make some sense. And then again, if he does want to blow this up, you could easily sell Derrick Henry and Aaron Jones, just start Kyron Williams and Tyjae Spears and go for the tank. Very easy thing to do. I guess while I'm scrolling down here, I should talk about like what would I offer for Derrick Henry if I was a contender. It might sound crazy. I still think Derrick Henry is worth a first round pick. I still think he is, given his absolute monster touch, like league leading touchdown upside. I understand his age. I understand he's never been a pass catcher in his career, but what he can provide you from at least a ceiling standpoint too, at the running back position, you don't have to worry about him splitting carries. Like he is the workhorse. He is the guy. If you're a contender and still own your first round pick, like Austin, for instance, I know still has his first round pick, and there's been some questions about, Ramondre's workload and Breece Hall, like where is he in the recovery process? I think Austin would love to probably take on somebody like Derrick Henry. I know Austin has Aaron Jones or has AJ Dillon, so maybe he'd want to take Aaron Jones instead. But if Alec does decide to make some trades, I think there's a ton of people who would be willing to make deals with you. All right, so moving on to receiver, and T. Higgins just came over today, and it makes this room look a lot better than where it was yesterday. And we probably should talk about T a little bit. T is one of the few receivers in NFL history that's had 1,000 yards his first 3 seasons. Very rare company to do it. Mike Evans, Julio Jones, Andre Johnson. It's a very, very like rare company to be able to do that. Look, he's playing in like this dream situation right now. Jamar Chase takes like the number 1 corner every week. T faces a lot of man coverage, playing an offense where Joe Burrow throws it 40 times a game. And, look, like I think that T is a great player. I don't have a lot of bad things to say about T. I was very high on him in the draft process as well. came out as a young 21-year-old, so he's entering year 4, and he's still only 24 years old. T is a great guy, I think, just to hold. I mentioned it yesterday talking about the whole Joe Burrow situation, but if the Bengals decide they can't afford to pay T. Higgins, he's going to be getting on a brand new contract with a brand new team coming up. Could be a worse situation, could be one we're excited about where he's like the full number one guy. But I think either way, like T. Higgins is set up for multiple years of success going forward. If I was going to sell T. Higgins, I would be pretty much demanding like 2 firsts for him right now. Wide receiver 13 feels right. I think somebody would pay you that price for him. I know Alex just acquired him today, but we saw the fake trade with Austin. But he's definitely somebody I think a lot of people would like to have. He's like the perfect wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 for a team that's wide receiver needy. Somebody like Zach would probably love to have him. I would even take him on, like if I could offer, I don't know, George Pickens first and like something else, we could make a deal happen. But I don't really have a lot of bad things to say about T. Higgins. The only thing I want to hint at is he's never had more than 7 touchdown catches in the season. Touchdowns are usually pretty indicative of a guy's like overall fantasy output. I would love to see that number come up. I think it's a great shot it does, just because of how many big time catches he makes. And then with Jamar on the other side, it's hard to have the multi-TD game, sure, but 7 touchdowns does feel a little low for a guy who's out there and playing 90% of the snaps every single game, playing with a great offense and a great quarterback. Would love to see him score a couple more times, but his ceiling is definitely there to do it. Like his ceiling is there to be a 13, 14 touchdown catch kind of guy. Okay, so DJ Moore. Yeah, and look, this is like the ultimate. I know exactly how much you guys know about DJ Moore. We know he was a good receiver for the Panthers. I always had questions on his like overall ceiling, but I like him. I like him. I just don't love him as a player. He's kind of tiny. He's not a great like contested catch, go up and get it guy. He's not really a dominator. He's just a very good at what he does player. Very consistent, but he's just never been a big touchdown scorer. And that really scares you going to a Bears offense that just doesn't, Justin Fields doesn't throw a lot of touchdown passes. It's a run first offense. They're going to be playing a lot of slow games, probably a lot of low scoring games. I think DJ Moore can still be a top 24 finisher this year in fantasy, but I think his path there is like a little complicated. Like I think he's going to need those big plays to happen. I know people have seen that 70-yard touchdown in preseason that was on a bubble screen, but that's really just bad defense, I think, more than like DJ Moore looking special or them having some connection. I want to see if Justin Fields can really find him 25 yards down the field and like hit him in stride. There's a lot of questions with him. I mean, he's somebody who definitely still has value to everybody in the league, but like I just don't know. I have no idea like where to value him. He's so hard for me to like feel good about. Like even if I was trading for DJ Moore, like I don't really feel good about him starting him every week. He's kind of like Michael Pittman to me, where I mean he's better than Michael Pittman, but like it's the situation is kind of similar where like I wish he was with any other quarterback in situation for his like fantasy output. I think he does help the Bears, and maybe he is this, number one on like a low volume passing attack that can still put up numbers. But I feel like his ceiling is like 90 targets, for like a wide receiver. I mean, you'd be looking at games with like 5 targets for DJ Moore, and you look up and you see he had 3 for 20, right? And he might have the 7 for 135 and 2 scores kind of weeks, but I think he's really also going to have these like 3 for 20 and like he gets you 5 points. Amari Cooper. Yeah. So let me pull this up real quick here. Amari Cooper had the best year of his career last year. And I think people almost didn't even realize how good of the season he had. He had 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns playing with Deshaun Watson and Jacoby Brissett, of course, but he only did it on 78 catches. He wasn't really a high volume receiver. It was mostly just he was extremely efficient down the field, scored a lot of touchdowns, made a lot of big plays. But as a guy who gets older as well, how old is Amari Cooper now? Let me look this up. He just turned 29. So another guy who's in his 29-year-old season for Alec's team. These are the guys that just always scare you, right? Like Amari Cooper right now is of course of a ton of value, but when the wheels start to fall off, it's going to go quickly with him. And I want to make sure that Alec gets, good value and moving off of him when he needs to. So like, again, like if he decides to blow this up or decides to go for it, it's very clear who you want to sell. Like Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones, Amari Cooper, Tyler Lockett. Like those are the four guys we got to sell. If you want to go for it, I think you have the team to do it too. I know you have a lot of picks. We just got to get a little bit more depth, another running back, and probably one more receiver. I haven't gotten to Kadarius Toney quite yet, but we will. We will. So Tyler Lockett has been, for I guess for my money, I mean, he's probably been the most consistent wide receiver in the NFL for the last 7 years, right? Like this guy's never hurt, always has 1,000 yards, always has touchdowns, like always is out there making plays. Tyler Lockett is somebody's name that everybody who watches football knows, and we've seen him do it. I think last year everyone expected to kind of fall off to start, may have had his best season ever. But the Seahawks draft Jackson Smith-Njigba. It sounds like he's ahead of schedule with this recovery process. He should be good by week 1 or week 2. I don't think it really cuts into Tyler Lockett all that much that JSN is there. And I think all these guys can kind of live together and not eat away too much at each other just because the Seahawks have just not had that number 3 receiver. All these targets over the years to DJ Dallas and Will Dissly and D. Eskridge, they don't have the need to do that now. We got 3 good receivers. We're going to get them the ball. I think Lockett's set up for another great year. I mean, the Seahawks schedule, outside of playing the 49ers twice, I mean, every single game they play is going to be expected to be high scoring. Everyone is excited about this offense scoring a bunch of points. And I think Lockett's going to have another great year, for an older guy, again, I think he's 31 now, 32. I have it here too. Check this. Tyler Lockett turns 31 next month, about a month from today. So he's going to play this entire season at 31 years old, and being a smaller slot receiver, you just get worried. One big injury could be the end of it. And we're never going to be able to get value out of these guys if anything bad happens. So it's the risk you run. Let's see here. Kadarius Toney. Yeah. This is he walked so Jameson Williams could fly. That's kind of how I feel about Kadarius Toney. Had a monster season at Florida that got him drafted in the first round. Very young prospect, and everyone has seen all of his clips of his crazy jukes and crazy stuff that he does. He's really living off of this reputation of essentially 2 good games in the NFL, right? 2 good games for the Giants. He had that 170-yard receiving game against the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football, and everyone saw him do it. And then that's kind of what we're living by. Again, the Chiefs traded for him last year. He kind of didn't do much. He had a couple catches early and then didn't really matter down the stretch. I believe he was inactive in the Super Bowl or didn't do anything in the Super Bowl, whatever it was. And, again, he got hurt in training camp this year and has missed all of the offseason stuff with the Chiefs. I just don't see a way that this goes well. We know how the Chiefs operate, and Pat wants his receivers to be in the right place at the right time. They have Kelsey there. They have Sky Moore, have MVS, have Rashee Rice. Where does Toney fit into this? I think if he's healthy and, they want to get him the ball, they're going to get him the ball. But just from a weekly upside standpoint, I have no idea what to expect out of Kadarius Toney. I guess the upside there, though, is that receiving room is so open that if he's just clearly better than everybody else, he has definitely a chance to be the Chiefs' number 1 wide receiver for whatever that is worth. And again, we saw Juju last year have a pretty miserable season and still end up with 950 yards just because he keeps stat collecting. I think Toney could do that, but he's just never proven he could play an entire season. This guy's always hurt, always got something going on off the field, and I want to be excited about him, and I just can't. So yeah. And then DJ Chark being the last guy. I know he's hurt right now. I'm not even sure when he's supposed to come back, but he's going to play a good bit for the Panthers. I just don't expect a lot of fantasy upside for him. The biggest takeaway, actually, Isaiah McKenzie. So I see his value here at 649 on Sleeper, which is essentially 0. The Colts did the weirdest thing I've ever seen with a 53-man roster, and no one has really been talking about this. They only kept 4 wide receivers on the 53-man roster. They kept 5 tight ends and 4 receivers. And, quickly to go through them, Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, Isaiah McKenzie, and Josh Downs. Only 4 receivers they kept. So Isaiah McKenzie is going to play a bunch because we know he's not like a special teamer. He's either a kick returner, but he's not like a gunner. So he's going to play in the slot. I think he's going to have a role. And if Anthony Richardson's better than we expect, Isaiah McKenzie is going to give you another season of startable performances. I mean, I used him last year a ton. He's a great little player. And depending on how far Josh Downs is and learning everything, I mean, Isaiah McKenzie, I think early is definitely going to play a lot. Might have a startable week there for Alec, but I think overall, like, this receiving core has talent. I think that top 4 is very, very good. It definitely rivals other top 4s that are in this league of upside and star power. Getting T. Higgins, I love this from Alec, just getting that actual number 1 so you don't have to feel like DJ Moore is your number 1 guy. But I would love to see one more bench piece here, like a Rashad Bateman, like a John Mechie, or just somebody with like some upside. We know who's going to play. You never know, like, when you might need these guys. I think maybe one rookie receiver. I know I have like all of the rookies, but like, I think there's a lot of room for him to add like a younger receiver that can kind of work here, like Zay Flowers or like Quentin Johnson. He can make another deal with Jacob and go get Quentin Johnson probably. I mean, if Jacob wanted to take on Derrick Henry, like, that's the kind of move you're making, right? Is like Quentin Johnson for Derrick Henry, which that'd be fun to see, get some reactions out of that. But, I don't know exactly what that trade looks like off the top of my head in terms of value, but I think that's kind of interesting, right? Like, if Alec really wanted to kind of blow this up or maybe retool and get younger running back, remember, you don't always have to blow it up to 0 like I did. I kind of took the long approach because I want to test my own theory with how this will work in Dynasty. If you want to just get younger at the position, there's a lot of ways we can trade Derrick Henry and do that, right? Like, Xander has Dameon Pierce. Well, if you trade Derrick Henry for Dameon Pierce, you get 8 years younger at the position. You only lose, like, on average, like 4.5 points a week in projection. Like, sure, Dameon Pierce doesn't have the same weekly upside, but he's going to have value for longer than Derrick Henry, unless Derrick Henry is truly just an Iron Man and plays till he's like 34 years old. But yeah, so that's the receiving core. Allen Robinson, he's going to start at slot for the Steelers. And I think a lot of people don't even realize he's on the Steelers still, but Allen Robinson is going to start at slot for the Steelers. Is that fantasy relevant at all? I don't know. It's going to be George Pickens and Deontay on the outside, and then Allen Robinson in the slot with, of course, Pat Freiermuth. But Robinson's going to play snaps, so you never know. You never know with him. Let me scroll down to tight ends here. All right. My white whale, the one that got away, the one that I really wanted and just couldn't find a way to get, at least to this point, is Mr. Dalton Kincaid. As far as tight end prospects go, and somebody who watches college football, I'm telling you, like, Dalton Kincaid is a special talent at being a receiver. The Bills did not draft him to block. This dude is going to be playing slot receiver for the Bills, and I think he's going to do it right away. Sure, it could be a slow start. Dawson Knox is still there, sure. I just think for career path for Dalton Kincaid is like, this guy can lead the NFL in catches a season at tight end. Like, he's that kind of special when it comes to being just a receiver. Natural route runner, great hands. He's a contested, big body, good athlete. But, I've tried to make trades with Alec all day. Before recording this, I've sent Alec a couple of different offers. We talked back and forth, and like, Alec understands his value, and I'm glad he does, because Kincaid is somebody who, that is like the ideal person I would want on my team. I think this first year, I'm not expecting too much from him. He'll be solid. I just think next year is like the year Kincaid takes the jump. Dawson knocks off the roster. Stephon Diggs turns 31, 32. Like, I think this Bills offense could be running through Dalton Kincaid very shortly, kind of how like the Chiefs do with Travis Kelce. I just really like this connection here with him and Josh Allen. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to stop this screen share, and I'm going to show you guys a different tab. I'm going to see if this will work out. Okay. All right, so there we go. This is a website called Player Profiler. If you've never been here and you want to learn something about your young guys on your team or potential guys you're trading for, this is where I would go to do it. It's just playerprofiler.com and just search the guy's name. What it does here is it tells you height, weight, the age, and then like all of their workout metrics and kind of, what they were in at the combine. Kincaid only did the 40 and I think the 40 was all he did actually, but he didn't do any of the agility stuff. Remember, he was coming back from an ankle injury, still ran a 4.68 40. I'm telling you, he's faster than that. He plays faster than that. But the top right is kind of my favorite tool here, which just is like the biggest comparable player based on like height, weight, speed. And that would be Isaiah Likely. And for all you guys who know how high I am on Isaiah Likely as a prospect, well, imagine he played at a Pac-12 program, had 900 yards and 15 touchdowns playing in the Pac-12, and then goes to a team that wants to throw him the ball straight away without like a blocker in front of him, how Mark Andrews is to Likely. I think he's like a home run prospect. I'm not afraid to say this, but I sent Alec an offer today. It was Michael Mayer and a 2025 second for Dalton Kincaid. And I understand I'm way overpaying, but Alec basically told me, like, no chance. Kincaid is that good. I'm demanding a first. I want my first back for Kincaid. And, like, I get it. I'm afraid to pay it right now just because I want to make sure that my plan of, like, getting this first overall pick does work out. But my goodness, he is somebody I'm really excited by. This will be, like, my flag plant player throughout all of these shows that we do, even more than my team probably. I think Dalton Kincaid is going to be like a household name, top 24 player in the NFL, like really quickly. I really, really do. All right, let me switch off of this and share team breakdown one more time here because I want to look at his picks. All right, so outside of Dalton Kincaid, Alec has Mike Gesicki, Tyler Conklin, and Austin Hooper. Tyler Conklin's the one who's really his like number 2 tight end here. Conklin's going to be the starting tight end for the Jets. And like CJ Uzoma is there, but he's not really a threat. Jeremy Ruckert is there, but he's been more of a blocker than he is a receiver. Conklin did some really nice things over the past couple of seasons, and I think playing with Aaron Rodgers is the best QB he's ever played with. So who knows? He could end up being a pretty good backup. Taysom Hill, we'll need to talk about Taysom Hill. Austin Hooper is going to be there with Michael Mayer for the Raiders, but I think it's Mayer's job, and unless there's like an injury, Hooper's not going to be fantasy relevant. Gesicki and Hunter Henry is splitting time. I should mention with Gesicki, Gesicki is a great athlete, and we know what he can do. We've seen him have big games in the past, but new team with the Patriots now. I just don't know if the fantasy upside is there for him. But again, like if you're somebody who needs a backup tight end, like sending an offer for Mike Gesicki for like a 3rd round pick or something seems to be perfectly fine with me. And let me show you the picks he has here. So Alec, as I said, ranks 4th overall in picks. So we've got 3 firsts over the next 2 seasons here. He's got Caps and Mats next year. So probably middle to late firsts. I don't think they're high firsts, but he's got 2 middle to late firsts. He's got his own first in 2025. He's got his own second in this coming draft. He's got Blake's second. He's got his own second in 2025. Alec's got a bunch of high-value picks here coming up, and I would just encourage him not to try and sell these because if you take the tank route, you can join me with having – like me and Jordan have all these picks right now. Maybe Jordan wants Derrick Henry. I'm sure he'd give you, a fair price for him. Jordan obviously hates to trade and loves to screw people over, but look, he might be willing to pay if it's midseason. He realizes he needs a running back. So I would just keep that in mind. I think if Alec doesn't try and blow this up completely and just stands his ground. I mean, I don't know if he's a playoff team this year, but not having his own first, if you don't have your own first, you'd obviously love to make the playoffs, at least give your team a shot at the championship. I still think he probably is a couple moves away from doing that. Like at least as we sit here today, I think he's a bottom 6 roster, but it's not like that far off. I think a lot of these teams are very, very close together, and I think Alec might be like one move from being right there in contention. Just kind of depends how he wants to do this. Like if Blake wanted to sell you Kirk Cousins to just get you a weekly starter QB and, maybe get you one more running back in the process, like I think that's a trade that makes sense. And then again, like if you do want to tank, there's a lot of routes to do it. We know who we need to sell. And it's pretty cut and dry what you need to do with this roster. And I think a lot of the bench guys that I didn't even touch on can easily be replaced in these next couple drafts because he does have picks. So like that doesn't concern me too much. I just hope Alec kind of picks a path within the first 3 weeks of the season, because if he doesn't, this is where it gets scary when you kind of have competing sides of half tank, half all in. We want to make sure that we're picking a direction in Dynasty. And I think Alec's team is better than people give him credit for. So just be on the lookout. If Alec makes a couple more good moves here, I could easily see this being a playoff team. Like I keep saying it, all these teams are very close together. Everyone can beat everyone. It comes down to the week. So yeah. All right. So on to Jonah's. I'm going to be doing Jonah's next time. And thank you guys for listening. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.